Welcome. This is another presentation in a series of videos which are actually animating different chapters of a book which I wrote, which is called The Wisdom of Tantra. And one of the chapters in this book is called Life, Death, and Reincarnation, or Life, Death, and Rebirth. And so this is a presentation today is based on that with a little bit extra, I've added a little bit extra. So we'll get right into it, because this is a subject which is very fascinating, because people are always concerned about their actions in the world, and is there a law of karma? How does that work? And especially people are interested in, well, what happens when we die? That's one of the biggest, the age-old questions for humans. So I'm going to attempt to answer it using the yoga philosophy of Sri Sri Anandamurti, who's my guru, and I hope that you enjoy it. So let's get on with it. So first question is what is karma? So karma means action. So whenever you do some action, you move an object from one place to another. You do what the physicists call work. That's an action. So we move one object from one place to another. Now, the big question is there a law of karma? So you know that in physics, there's certain laws. There's the second law of motion, which says that for each action there is an equal and opposite reaction. So in the realm of yoga, or the psychic world, the mental world, there's a similar law, but it's not the same. It's similar but not equal. So here's how the psychic or the mental law of action and reaction goes. So there is a reaction for every action, that's sure, just like in the physical world. But the reaction may not be equal. That's the thing. So I'll show you some examples, or we'll talk about some examples where they may not be equal. Look at how some actions work. Here we have a straight line, and that represents where your normal state of being, your normal state of consciousness. And every time we do an action, there is like a change of that state. My guru once used a description where he had a rubber ball, and he says, imagine a rubber ball. So if you depress it, you do an action, the ball gets depressed. And then when the ball pops back, that's the reaction, and when it pops back, then the mind either gets pleasure or pain. So here, I wanted to do it when I was writing my book in 2 dimensions to show it. So here's how it looks in 2 dimensions. So this plane, you can say it from X to Z, is the normal state of the mind. But when you do an action, you go to point Y. The mind is impressed or depressed, or it leaves its normal equilibrium. But if you get the immediate reaction, it goes back to Z. So like you punch somebody, and somebody punches you back, and then you go to point Z, and now you're back to where you started from, but you have experienced either pleasure or pain depending on what kind of action it was. Okay, so now we'll go to the next slide, hopefully. But sometimes it doesn't happen that way. So here we'll give another example, hopefully. So this is called the delayed action. So in a delayed reaction, what happens is you punch somebody, E and F, so you did an action, but he didn't punch you back. So that dotted line, F to G, represents a reaction in potential form. A reaction in potential form. And this reaction in potential form, basically, this is what colloquially people call your karma. they said, you know, you did something, and oh, you have bad karma, but it means that there were some reactions that you have to reap. And in Sanskrit, the proper philosophical word is called sanskara. These are sanskaras. So, and I think on the next slide we spell it out. Yeah. So line EF represents the original action. FG represents a potential reaction that has not taken place. And the mind has been distorted, but no reaction has come. That's the problem. So even though you got away with it, you punched a guy, and he didn't punch you back. That you still the mind is still registering that it's not, you're not at all cool. You're not everything's cool. No, it's not cool. Your mind is disturbed. So what happens? So the reaction of potential form is called a sanskara, and collectively all your sanskaras is what people know as karma. So we create many sanskaras. Every time we do an action with the consciousness that I am doing an action, we create a sanskara. So, you know, there are many things that we do. We're building up momentum. That's why another term to describe sanskara is reactive momenta. Momenta is plural. Reactive momenta. So of these, so we have a lot of things. So you, like for instance, you can't say I want to stop everything. I don't want to do anything anymore. You can't stop that. I just want to sit in my room and meditate. But then someone is going to call you up because you made an appointment. Someone's going to knock at the door. You're supposed to do this. You're supposed to do all these things from the past. They're building up, and you just can't stop. So this is the situation. We create many sanskaras. So now, the big question is, what happens when we die? Here we go. So to do this, we have to understand a few things. Usually, we die with many sanskaras. It's unfinished business, right? People don't tie up everything in a knot and everything is done. No, we have many. We did some things, we didn't get the result of it. So what happens? So these sanskaras are like unfinished business. Yes, unfinished business. And according to the yogis, they will have to be experienced, but in a future life. So now we'll talk about that, how that, I know that not everyone believes in that concept, but we'll discuss it. So to do that, we have to first understand a few things we have to understand. What is life and what is death? And also, after death, what could remain or not, and what carries over. So we'll try to discuss these things. These are mysteries which will go on forever, maybe. So to understand what happens at death or after death, we need to understand life. So according to the yogis, life is defined as a parallelism of mind and body. So we have a physical wave and a mental wave. So up to here, like if they're going together in parallelism, that's called life. So everything is in order. You're physically okay, your mind is okay, everything is cool. But if some disturbance comes of the physical wave, here's an example here, you get hit by a car or something like that, there's a complete disturbance, there's no more parallelism. And if that continues, you'll die. So that's why there are different kind of parallel loss is loss of time. So in the previous diagram, we saw that was called the physical cause of death. The body could not maintain parallelism with the mind. So that happens. People have a sound mind, but if someone shoots you in the head, it doesn't matter how sound your mind is, you will lose your physical parallelism and you will die. But there's another possibility. So here, the mental wave is severely out of parallel with the physical wave. And this can happen in a state of shock or fright, or sometimes it happens. Well, what happens is actually the mind actually it also affects the body because of the the psychic wave is so disturbed, then the heart can stop, many things can happen, but this is called the psychic cause of death or the mental cause of death. So when the body loses parallelism with the mind, a person dies. That happens. So now the question comes, what happens to all these, these dotted lines in one of the previous slides? What happens at the time of death? You punched that guy, but you didn't get punched back. What's going to happen? And you did some good things also, but also nobody rewarded you yet, and maybe you have something good coming to you. So what happens? So the sum total of reactions in potential form create a momentum that has to be realized. So it has to be realized that that's something that is part of nature. It has to be realized. So they form what's called a bundle of sanskaras. You have a bundle. All your unfinished business is in a bundle. Now, okay, this is also very important. So this is very important. The bundle is witnessed by consciousness. Here's like the key element here. We're introducing another element, and this witnessing consciousness is called the ATMAN. I don't know if I have it here. Yeah, it's the ATMAN. Yeah, this is one of the key concepts of why there's reincarnation. What holds it all together? What is reborn? Yeah, that's a big question. What is no? Your personality is not reborn. You're Mr. Smith, and you're not going to be Mr. Smith in the next life, and that's not reborn. Your passport is not renewed in the next life, but your witnessing consciousness is indestructible, and that is what gets incarnated. But it gets incarnated with some special things. So the Atman, we'll explain now if you want. It's maybe very abstract. I'll make it more concrete. So the Atman is the first I in the sentence. I know I exist. I know I exist. See, you can say I exist. That's your mind. Your mind is thinking, I exist, or I can do this, I did that, she did this to me, he did that to me. That's your ego, that I. But here we say, I know I exist. This is something witnessing the mind. It's separate from the mind. That is the witnessing consciousness, and we have that witnessing consciousness. And that witnessing consciousness is also called the soul. Yes, it is called the soul in religious parlance, but in yogic terminology, it's called Atman. And it is indestructible. It doesn't fade away. It can merge with the cosmic consciousness, but it's usually it doesn't. That's not so easy, because that's the goal of the yoga, actually. So it is pure consciousness. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about death and rebirth. So it is the Atman, along with the bundle of sanskaras, that gets reborn. So the momenta is there. And I'll explain a little bit how that works. So when a person dies, the prana, or the life force, leaves the body when parallelism is lost. So, prana is all the sum total of all the vital energies, the breath, and the things that move the fluids and everything, and it goes out. That's why even physically, when people die, there's usually some kind of opening. The mouth will open, or the rectum opens, because the life force, the prana is going out. This is what the yogis say, at least. But in physical, people who observe death, they also notice that. Fortunately, I haven't observed it, firsthand. I don't want to. So the Atman and its sanskaras. Now what happens is, according to yoga, the Atman and its sanskaras are in an interim state. Where are they? It's the long sleep in the causal mind. They exist in the cosmic mind. So when you die, your conscious mind your conscious mind is what you're using to watch this slideshow, and the subconscious mind is what you're using to remember the slideshow. Those things go because they're dependent on the brain. Everything that has to do with the brain will go because the brain is going to disintegrate, and also at the moment of death it'll stop working anyway. So those things cannot remain. But what does remain is the witnessing consciousness, which is like it exists in the cosmic mind, and the witnessing consciousness is surrounded by this bundle of samskaras. But it's the long sleep. It's like sleep. Like in sleep, you're not aware. No, you won't be able to tell your name and address and so many things like that because you're not even aware of your existence in sleep. So it's a long sleep in the causal mind. Now, rebirth. Now, I'll also explain a little bit about karma here. When there is a suitable physical structure anywhere in the universe that matches the bundle of samskaras of the deceased person, there is the rebirth of that soul and its samskaras. This is the whole key. So your physical, your samskaras, your karma, creates like a vibration, a momentum, and it has to have a proper receptacle, a proper place where it can express itself. So before, I think I didn't really tell it, I said the law of action and reaction is not equal. So if these reactions are delayed, they come back with interest. So in the last life, you punched somebody and you got away with it. But in this life, someone may punch you 10 times because it's accumulated some interest. So it's not, and also not only that, the time has changed, this place has changed. When the place changes also, that causes a distortion of the reaction. So now what happens is you've created certain kinds of actions in the past. And certain things have happened to you, and so you have to get a place where you can express them. Sometimes you get good stuff, like you did a lot of meditation in your last life, but you couldn't complete. So then in the next life, where's a good place for you to be? You get born in a family of yogis, and then you start to meditate from a young age. Or in the last life, you were a great piano master. And then in this next life, you will get in another place, and there's a piano in the living room, and you step up at 4 years old, and you're the next prodigy. So you get a place where there's a suitable environment for you to express your karma. Now, one thing about karma, it expresses in different ways. It goes by quanta. Suppose you have some very bad karma in the sense that it's going to create a lot of pain. So how's that going to express itself? It won't express itself in the same way that pain was expressed in a previous life, but it may be that you get born in a place and the quanta of pain that you have is such that your mother dies when you're 11 years old. So that's a painful experience. That comes from that's the quanta of pain that you have to experience according to whatever has happened in the past. So this is the concept. It's not exactly, the same situation will recreate itself in the next life, but there's a certain quanta of pain, a certain quanta of good things, and they all come together. But the main thing is that whenever there's a suitable structure, it could be anywhere in the universe. It could be another planet, but it has to match the samskaras. So maybe if you've lived on this planet, this is my understanding, you have a lot of samskaras of Earth. Oh wow, I want to go to Paris. Well, in the next, maybe in the next life you'll go. But if you get born on another planet, you can't go to Paris. I'm not sure how that works. But in any case, if you've been attached to this Earth, I think you'll be born here on the Earth. But that's my guess on this. But in any case, it could be anywhere in the universe. But you have to get the right structure. And when the right structure is there, it means the cosmic nature, Prakriti, the cosmic natural creative force matches. That's the job of called the Rajaguna of Prakriti. That's the job, to match the potential structure, psychic structure, with the physical structure. Now, okay, this is a bombshell, of course. So some questions that will come up when we address this topic. How long does it take for rebirth to occur? One popular guru said it depends on the time, what kind of death you had. No, according to this theory. Really, how long it takes depends on the readiness, if there is a structure available, to receive, to carry on your story. So if there is a structure available, you can be reborn immediately or tomorrow. There's not much of a delay. But if there's not a proper structure, it could be hundreds of years. So that's one thing. But there's even another question. Does the disembodied soul feel pleasure or pain? According to this theory, no. And the reason why, you can understand it, pleasure and pain depend on the nerves. So when you die, the nerves are being, they decay. First they stop working at the time of death, when all the parallelism is lost, but then they even physically disintegrate. There are no more nerves. So there's no question of pleasure or pain. And even any physical person, even a materialist, will tell you that too. But the yogis will also say that there's not physical the soul, the disembodied soul doesn't feel pleasure or pain. So that's one thing, you don't have to worry about that. Now we come to another, there's a bombshell for, at least in certain cultures it would be. So is there a heaven or a hell? So according to the yogis, no, there's not a heaven or hell. Heaven we can describe as when you're in this life and you're getting all the past sanskaras, you did this thing, that thing, so many good things have happened to you. You say, I'm in heaven. And that people on this planet say war is hell. That's a hell. If you ever have the misfortune to be in the middle of a war, then you'll see things that will say, yes, this is what hell is. So, but the yogis say there's not a heaven or hell. And so it's not that eternal punishment or eternal reward. There's not eternal punishment, but you will get rewarded for things that you did, in the terms of you will reap the reaction, and you will reap either a good reaction or a bad reaction. You'll reap it either in this life or in the next life, but not in an in-between state, and it's definitely not for an eternity. This is not. If you think about a benevolent God, what benevolent God would punish somebody for eternity? That's not. Even in cruel and inhuman punishment, we even have it in the U.S. Constitution. That's inhuman punishment. So, and even if civil authorities are capable of understanding that concept, definitely an omniscient and all-loving God understands that also. So there's no heaven, there's no hell. Now, can we communicate or receive a message from the departed persons? So that there's a whole a business of spiritualism where people say, I can contact your Aunt Martha. You come and we have this Ouija board or something, and she's telling you this and telling you that, and usually there's a profit motive. Either the person is trying to make money just to get you into the seance, or even to take advantage of you by the advice that they give. So this is definitely not. The soul can't receive any messages from you. The same reason why it doesn't have pleasure or pain. It's just not like that. So you don't have to worry, and you don't have to worry about ghosts. There was a movie called Ghost, and and people are worried about, what the deceased husband or wife is going to think. It's not going to happen like that. So we cannot communicate, we cannot receive messages, and we cannot, and they cannot also wonder about you. They won't wonder about you because they're in the long sleep in the causal mind. Okay, this is at least the yogis say that. The yogis say, I haven't proven it yet. I'll try to give some logic though, but I can't prove it. Nobody can prove it. So is there any proof validating these ideas? Okay, well, let's look at it. Here's a very good book. There's a man named Ian Stevenson. You can see his name up on the screen here. And he used to be a researcher at the University of Virginia. And the book that I read, which is an abbreviation of his main book, but it's called Where Biology and Reincarnation Intersect. But there's another book, I don't have the title on there, but you look up Ian Stevenson and Reincarnation, you're going to find it. So he did a very, extremely interesting study. He went to different places where, different cultures. There was American Indian and Indian, and I think Southeast Asia, other places. Some places where they have ideas of reincarnation, some not. But he collected stories of people, because you know that at a certain age, up to a certain age, people can remember their past lives because there's something called extracerebral memory. Before I talked about the nerve cells and the subconscious mind, and those memories are recorded by nerves and in the cerebrum, in the brain, but there's something called extracerebral memory. So up to a certain age, young children sometimes have memories of a previous incarnation. So Mr. Stevenson collected the stories, and then he found something really interesting, was that in some of these cases, especially people who died with a violent death, this is one of the conditions of being able to remember past life. If you died with a violent death, or if you did suicide, you have you are awake, you are conscious when you died. There's more possibility that you will remember what happened in the previous life. So he got some stories of people who explained, yeah, in the past life I was killed by such and such in a certain village, and this is how he killed me. He hit me in the eye with with a red stick, or there was one case where I was bound, my legs were folded up to my thighs and bound with a rope, thrown into a well. And then, so what happened, and the people who told the story, they had birthmarks equivalent to the type of injuries that caused their death. One guy had something over here, and another guy had some deformities on the legs. But more than that, then they went back to those villages where these stories were said to have happened, and they found corroborating evidence. And in his book, the pictorial version, Where Biology and Reincarnation Intersect, Stevenson shows birthmarks and other kind of deformities which correspond to the stories. That's why he says where biology and reincarnation intersect. So this is one kind of proof. And I'm going to give also some more than the proof. I will also give a little bit of logic. I don't know if it's in my notes here, but I'm going to add something. This is a very rich subject. So, how are we doing? I'm looking at the time. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, I don't like to keep people waiting a long time. So Dr. Stevenson studies seems to confirm stories about reincarnation. Before I go into the karma and getting free from birth, I want to talk about one more thing about it. There's also other stories about that. There's a very good contemporary story called The Boy Who Knew Too Much. And it's a story about one young boy who had this idea that he was Lou Gehrig in a previous life. And he knew many things about Lou Gehrig's life. It's a book, It's going to be a movie, or at least they were trying to make it into a movie. It's very interesting. There's another story that came out recently about one boy who he kept drawing pictures of the South Pacific of ships and Japanese planes attacking and this kind of thing. He was obsessed with it. And then finally he told his mother, you see, I was on one of these ships which were attacked by the Japanese planes in the last life, and I died at a certain place, and they took him to, and he remembered certain things. They took him to that place, and there was the ship, and a lot of there was corroborating evidence. So there's corroborating evidence to some of these stories. But more than that, I want to look at it one more way from the point of view of the logic of this world. So in this world, we see a lot of injustice taking place. Innocent people are being harmed. And then you see bad people are getting lifted up. So, and if everything ended in one life, the whole thing doesn't look just. There's no justice. But if you take a bigger picture, and you see how it plays out, why there was someone was harmed, but maybe in the past life he was not a hero, he was a villain in the past. So it goes like that. So, and he had to experience a certain quantum. So in the long run, it all evens out. The karma, it's justified. But if you take a snapshot, you can never justify. And even in life, it's like that. If you only look at a small portion of a picture, you don't get the complete story. So what I'm asking you to do is try to take a bigger picture of it, and then you'll see that yes, it's possible. And also, someone who's riding high today maybe will be low tomorrow. Very low. He's the richest person on the earth today. He could be a beggar tomorrow. He could be lower than a beggar. He can be, according to yoga, he can not have this physical form of a human. If you live like an animal, maybe you get an animal in the next life. It's possible. According to the yogis, I know that not everybody on this earth is going to believe this thing. So, and that's really where the hell is, to be reborn over and over and over, and to suffer. And also, to come to the human body, you had to come through many different life forms. According to the yogis, again, you had to. If you saw one of my other slides on the Brahma Chakra, then you'll see that how that works out. But so you had to go through many incarnations, and that's painful also. So that's why there's something called karma yoga, to get free from birth and death and rebirth. So finally, like even in this life, sometimes people say, stop this whole thing. I want to just get off. I want to stop this whole business. I want to take rest. And so that's why, like in Buddhism, is all about this: get off the wheel of birth and rebirth. So karma yoga is that science. So we'll go into a little bit. I don't know if I'm going to have enough time to do the whole thing now. So normally we're creating sanskaras every time we act. That ensures that we will be reborn to finish the unfinished reactions, because we're just constantly creating new. So there are some ways now how to avoid creating these reactions. So if we do an action with the idea that everything that we move and touch is an expression of, so if we do it with our ego, you get a reaction. But if you do it with the idea that everything that we move and touch is an expression of this cosmic consciousness, then a sanskara is not created. It's not that I did it, it's that cosmic consciousness working through me created it. So we have to like kind of think that, and this is the science of karma yoga, we have to think that I am pure consciousness. This ball that I'm holding up is pure consciousness. The place where I'm putting it down is consciousness. It's all consciousness. And no sanskara will be created there. And this is called Madhu Vidya. So we treat everything as an expression of divinity. So this is it. There are some other ways also. We're going to talk a little bit more of that. Other ways to do it is if you don't be attached to the fruit of the action, then also you don't create a reaction. So people, I'm running the race, I want to be number one, I want to get the medal, and you create such a thing. But if you're just running it for pleasure, you're not going to create the reaction. And finally, if you surrender all the actions to God, also the reactions go. So this is the classic way of karma yoga. And this is what Krishna taught to his student Arjuna right on the battlefield. That's what the Bhagavad Gita is. It's the story of what is karma yoga. So that's what Krishna taught. But now I'm going to build on one of my colleagues, Dada Vedaprajinananda, did a slideshow recently. I don't know if I will do it justice, where he talks about another look at karma yoga. Yeah, this is another look. So this is another look at it. So we do two kinds of actions. The original actions, called pratyaya mulaka karma. That's a hard one, but it's the original actions. And so I want to go to Chicago, and then I go. It's my free will. Yeah, okay, but you're going to get a reaction. So actions based on sanskara, we are compelled to do because of past actions is another type. So you go to Chicago and you get a sanskara, but that's because of your choice. Whatever happens there, you did. But then actions based on sanskara, which we are compelled to do because of past. So a thief is caught and gets put in jail. So he didn't decide I want to go to jail like you wanted to go to Chicago. That's his past action. So he has to suffer a certain degree of pain caused by who knows what in the past life. Maybe he imprisoned somebody unjustly. Who knows? We don't know. But in this case, it says he's a thief. So he's also done. This is based on sanskara. Okay, but it's based on past sanskara, it says here. So he maybe is a thief in the last life. Okay. Now, all our sanskaras are bundles. I talked about that before. That's what gets reborn, the bundle of sanskaras. And this is called the karmashaya. So we do all actions according to desire, called vasana. And there's also a pot of desires. So this is the pot of desires. So, and the shape of the pot is determined by the kind of actions we put into it. So we're doing a lot of mischief, then we get a certain shaped pot. So water represents original actions. The shape of the pot affects the kind of actions we do. The pot changes by adding or subtracting sanskaras. It's complicated. So how should we change the pot? When we do actions with the ideation of cosmic consciousness, see, so that's what I was trying to explain before. We do an action, we think that this food is basically it's God in the form of food. I use consciousness kind of philosophical, but it's divinity. And we do everything with the idea of divinity. I meet my friend, I greet my friend, I'm greeting God in the form of my friend. I'm greeting the divine, the cosmic consciousness. And we start to do our actions like that. We will fill the pot with consciousness. And this changes the bundle of sanskaras. It affects our action, our personality, and we move towards liberation. So how to add consciousness to the pot? So 8-limbed yoga, which is what I discussed in a previous episode of this, it's in my Wisdom of Tantra book, and it's also one of the series of this slideshow, of this video episodes, because now it's a video. It was a slideshow, now it became videos. So Ashtanga Yoga. And there are 8 practices, but there are 3 stages in the process of elevating consciousness. So we try to free the mind from the influence of organs and pranendriya. Organs, organs, and the control of the organs. That's called yama and niyama. These are the principles of morality, which I've also discussed. And we attain purity in mind, and we become less identified with the body. And this increases the control of the mind over the vital energy. I am not this body. I am something beyond. We get subtle awareness as the bundle is filling with consciousness. So as you do these actions, which are based on cosmic consciousness, you start to get a subtle awareness. And then one day there's the merger with cosmic consciousness, surrendered apart to the supreme consciousness, and the cycle of action and reaction will end. It's also like there are no more negative reactions, no more physical reaction. There's nothing more to be reaped, and you will merge with the cosmic consciousness. You'll be off the cycle of life and death and rebirth. And this is the goal of life. Why is it the goal of life? Because even in your mundane life, you'll know that you're constantly seeking something which will fulfill you, satisfy you, give you happiness. So when we want happiness, but happiness always eludes us because we want a greater happiness than the physical things can provide. And the only way to get that ultimate happiness is when you merge with that supreme consciousness, which is supreme happiness, unending happiness. You wanted an ice cream cone, gave you pleasure, but the ice cream cone has a finite ending. But the supreme consciousness has no finite ending. And the bliss is different from pleasure. So you eat the ice cream cone, that's pleasure. But bliss is some kind of a joy, which it goes beyond the little pleasures that we have. So that's what will happen. The cycle of action and reaction will end one day. So this is the idea. So I think you should think about it, because I raised many questions. It's challenging to many kinds of religions and philosophies and ideas of the world. It's kind of radical, but if you take the bigger picture of things, and even you look at your own life to see how things work, I think you're going to find a lot of sense in this theory. But anyway, you can study it. That's why we have a bibliography here. Here's the Wisdom of Tantra. That's the book that I wrote, and that this chapter is explained in it, although with maybe a little less detail. And then Idea and Ideology, I really recommend it, by P.R. Sarkar, especially his chapter on life, death, and samskara. And later I'll show you where to get that book. And then there's one of the essays of Sri Anandamurti, and this is what the second part with this pot of desires is based on. It's called The Science of Action. And there's a YouTube by my colleague, Dada Vedaprajinananda. I have a link on here. I don't know it might be difficult for you to do it when you're seeing the video. Maybe I'll put that in the description. I can put that in the description on YouTube. And there's also, you can get the books, like Wisdom of Tantra, Idea and Ideology. You can get them at the pathofbliss.com/shop. And that is about it, So I encourage you to read about this subject. It's a fascinating subject. Think about it, but also important, act. Act as if it is true. You may or may not believe, but act as if that the action that you create today could come back to you, and even it could come back with interest. So don't create bad bets, for the future. So create good actions, and if you can even go beyond good actions and do actions without getting the reaction, that's even better. And you will get one day you will be off this wheel of life and death and rebirth. So that's the story, and thank you so much. I've taken up a little bit of your time, but I think it's an important subject, and you can read through my book about it or the other books, think about it, and I'll be back with another episode in this series of the Wisdom of Tantra going on. So I thank you very much. I give you the yogi greeting, Namaskar. It means I salute you with all the divine charms of my mind, and the love and cordiality of my heart. And I'm saluting the divinity within you. I'm treating you as you're the cosmic consciousness. God has come in your form, and that's why I salute you. So that's all from me today. Thank you.